So I got a fun topic to talk about. Money, finances, tuition, fundraising, budgeting. We have such a unique school. Like I, as a parent, long for my children to have a Christian education, but as a parent, am really afraid of my children having a private school education, right? Because a typical private school means your children are with wealthy children and afraid of what impacts that might have on our children. And so in God's goodness, like we have a beautiful diversity of demographics at the school socioeconomically. And it's very safe to say the vast majority of us, it's a stretch to provide for our children's education. And probably most of us didn't even necessarily plan on a private education for our children. And if you're like me, you didn't come from a private education background. So this is a new thing. And by private education, what it means is you're not getting public funds. And so the school has to find other private ways, not government ways, to fund the programs. And so in that, like usually the reason a private school means it's a wealthy constituency is because you got to pay for it. Somebody's got to pay for the teachers and the facilities and the curriculum and everything else, right? From PE equipment to glue sticks and Xerox machines. And so what's interesting is when you look at public schools, how they are $12, $13, $14, $15,000 per pupil. We don't feel that because taxes are funding that. Property taxes primarily, but there's also state and federal taxes that help fund that. And so it feels free, but we paid for it with taxes. With the private schooling, the way it's been currently set up in South Carolina, your taxes don't pay for that. Now it is interesting, there's actually different tax programs in 18 other states that benefit parents who pay for private education. All the way from vouchers that can pay completely for a private education to different ways from how grandparents can invest money to how you can invest money, how you can designate taxes to go not to a public school but to a private school, to really empower parent choice instead of being forced to go to one school that your zip code is in. South Carolina is not there, but we've started to send some information that there are rumblings afoot. That would be amazing if we could provide some subsidies to paying tuition payments, because it's hard. Most of us have to sacrifice to pay for our children's education. And even in that, the school having such a vision for socioeconomic diversity, this year we've given over $265,000 in financial assistance. That is over 25% of our budget. Because we believe that. We don't want just Christian education. We want socioeconomically diverse education. It's so important. But we also love our teachers, and we don't want to pay teachers peanuts that they don't stay. We want to take care of our teachers. We want them to not have stress financially, just as we don't want to have finance stresses, right? And so we're in this thing together. Like, we want to provide for our kids, we want to provide for our teachers, we want this awesome education, and we try to figure out how to do it, because we don't do $14,000 tuition payments like what a per pupil expenditure would be in a public school, right? We cut every cost possible to have the current tuition costs that you have. But to do that, that means cutting costs. Looks like subsidies from the Friendship, who we partner with, and they charge us a fraction of commercial renting prices, and the other relationships like with Armory and hopefully with Holmes Avenue Baptist. It looks like every one of our teachers, staff, and admin are subsidizing your tuition payments. Every one of us makes at best 2/3 of what we would make if we were in a public sector, and that's not including we don't get the benefits. Right? And that's okay, because we believe in it just like you believe in it, right? We want this desperately for our children. We want to be part of this greater mission of life that God's called us to. So everybody here, parents, teachers, staff, admin, we make huge sacrifices because it's worth it. It's not masochistic sacrifices. There's a greater gain that we get from what we lose and what we spend. But when I say that, like, we do want to try to compensate our teachers better. Like, we want to continue to provide the best resources. And so that looks in a lot of different ways, right? That's parents who work their connections, such as at Blackbaud, and donate over 75 computers, smart boards, smart TVs, That looks like finding connections of schools that are donating their furniture, and we just got over probably $200,000 of furniture and smart boards from a public school that just got condemned, C.E. Williams Middle School. It looks like looking for people who are willing to give donations. And it looks like tuition payments. All those things come together so that we don't compromise. We can look our children in the eyes and say, we gave you the very best we could, right? So as we sacrifice for tuition payments, we still are looking for more funding, right? And so when you see different asks during the year, what we don't want to do is nickel and dime you, right? For those who have said, we budgeted more than we could to pay for tuition, and now inflation's killing us, and now you're asking for, what's next? Is it pizza? Is it a gift for the teacher? Is it a movie night? It feels like you're always asking. Like, the way we set it up is we let you know up front we're going to ask for a registration and supply fee to help cover some of our materials, and to have these tuition payments. Everything else is optional. I think there's some awesome options you might just say, I wanted to invest in that. Thank you for that opportunity. Thank you for a movie night that's way cheaper than any other date night we would have done with our family, or whatever. And even saying that, there's going to be times where we ask for donations. We're going to do what we call fundraisers. And that's not new under the sun. Every private school has to do that. Even your private school that charges $20,000 a year, they do huge fundraisers. So we have to do that so we can keep doing compensation. So for example, like our budget this year is about $1.2 million, and yet around 88% of that just goes right back into compensation. Then from there, it's rent. And then from there, you're talking about resources and supplies. It quickly, it extinguishes, correct? So we're gonna push Giving Tuesday coming up, as every school should push. And we're not asking for the parents who are already giving too much to give. And you might not know anybody else who gives, but there's some who do know. In fact, Christian schoolings, 22% of all donations to Christian schools in the United States last year came from grandparents. You might not know that statistic, but grandparents need to know the vision of what their grandchildren really need. Is it just about giving them all the gifts and sugar so they love you in the moment, or are grandparents helping us build world changers? What's their vision? I'd love to meet with grandparents and share what is a true vision for grandchildren. What legacies do we want to leave? And it's just also if there's other connections, whether it's connections with furniture, connections with people who can come and help with reading intervention, to people who can donate checks that can help build a new soccer field like Matt Bears just did. There's tons of opportunities. Don't ever feel exasperated if we ask for you to partner with us to raise funds. Feel excited, because those efforts are improving daily the education we're giving our children as we form world changers.